Welcome to episode 4 in the Small Unit Leadership Accelerator. In this segment, I will tell you what to expect from the platoon's senior enlisted leader. And it's more than just being a senior enlisted advisor. It has something to do with gravity and has everything to do with leadership. During this segment, I will tell you the roles and expectations I have for the platoon's most senior staff non-commissioned officer, aka the Staff NCOIC, aka the HMFIC. If you don't know what that means, go ask your mother to explain it to you. I will give you a good example set of billet expectations to help you understand the roles of the Staff NCOIC, especially those that lead in one of the majority of platoons around the Marine Corps which provide manned, trained, and equipped forces to military operations. We will discuss several roles with respect to manning, which include leadership and administration. We will discuss several roles related to equipping the platoon, including supervising maintenance, readiness, and accountability of the platoon's equipment. We will discuss Staff NCO roles in training the platoon, training for professional military education, military occupational specialty training, and mission-specific training. Finally, we'll discuss some roles related to accomplishing the platoon's mission. I'll also weave in for you my thoughts about how Staff NCO leadership is different from officer leadership, but also several ways in which they are the same. This is episode 4. Here's a short story. I was pulling butts at the rifle range in Okinawa several years ago when I had an encounter with some small unit leaders that changed my perspective forever. Handling the target to my left was a new staff sergeant in an artillery unit. I'm not sure his whole story, but on that day, he was stressed out because of his new role as the platoon Staff NCOIC. He was frustrated that his officer in charge was never around. The lieutenant was always being pulled away by the battery or the battalion to go do other things, so he wasn't around to do much of the heavy lifting in the platoon's day-to-day workload. The Marine handling the target on my right was a new platoon commander in a truck company in a logistics battalion. He had $45 million worth of vehicles and 60 Marines that he was responsible for, and he could not wrap his brain around how much work needed to be done to keep that massive unit functioning. He was forced to rely on the Staff NCOs to know and perform the vast majority of admin and mission tasks related to that platoon. What do you think these two stories have in common? It's a universal truth about officer and Staff NCO leadership of a platoon. Staff NCOs must be able to accomplish every admin and mission task of that platoon with or without close officer leadership. Let that settle in for a moment. The platoon must be able to rely on its Staff NCO leadership, so its Staff NCOs must be up to the task. As MACTAF officers, second and first lieutenants get assigned as platoon commanders to accomplish 3 objectives. First, lead Marines. In general, the lieutenant is given this time at the platoon to practice leadership skills, be a good example, build teams, set conditions for success, learn unit administration, and above all, be accountable. The junior officer's second objective is to learn how that platoon fits in its parent units and the MACTAF. More than any other service, Marines know how to provide combined armed forces rapidly anywhere around the globe. This means that we are really good at integrating different skills, weapon systems, sensors, vehicles, and aircraft into lethal combined arms teams. This requires Marine officers to be the best at stitching together platoons, companies, and battalions, and doing this rapidly requires expert knowledge of the capabilities of smaller units. The third, to gain experience that helps the junior officer prepare to be a wiser and more experienced senior officer. There are a lot of experiences that a senior commander needs to gain about the harsh realities and gritty details of the work that happens at the squad, section, and platoon levels before they can be wise and circumspect in employing larger forces. It's been said, and I tend to agree, that the time a junior officer spends in a platoon can be described as an internship at the beginning of their real career as a MACTAF officer. This leads us to 2 conclusions. First, the junior officer needs to be placed into different leadership settings to gain broadening experiences while they are still junior. They should stay long enough to achieve the 3 objectives I just mentioned, but they should not stay so long that they miss the chance to see another part of their occupational field or another element of the MACTAF. The second conclusion is that the Staff NCOs in that unit must be able to perform and supervise the A to Z of the work needed for that platoon to function. Most Staff NCOs have spent half their career or more performing the work that goes on in that platoon, and they will likely still be there long after the lieutenant is gone. The Staff NCOs can't transfer all that knowledge to the platoon commander in time for that platoon commander to be the linchpin in the day-to-day work of the platoon. While awards and FITREPs can only be done by officers, essentially everything else can and likely must be delegated to the enlisted leadership of the platoon. But the manning, training, equipping, and mission accomplishment functions should be best understood and performed by that platoon's NCO and Staff NCO leadership. Taking all this into consideration, a platoon commander's expectation for his or her Staff NCOIC should add up to performing or supervising essentially everything that the platoon needs to do. The platoon commander can add value in many different ways, but the Staff NCOIC's billet description should look very similar to the platoon commander's. It should provide coverage over all the same tasks to man, train, and equip the platoon to accomplish the unit's mission. You can refer to your own billet description from last episode when you're crafting the Staff NCOIC's billet description. However, you can also add another level of detail to state which aspects you want the Staff NCO to focus on. In my arrangement of the responsibilities, I have 3 categories that relate to the platoon's overall work, but they are each at the Staff NCOIC level of detail. They are 1. Sustain the platoon administratively and handle all enlisted matters, including training. 2. To ensure equipment readiness. And 3. To ensure mission-related requirements are met. Let's go into a little bit more detail on those 3 Staff NCOIC focus areas. So now, for the first paragraph in the billet description, I'm going to direct the Staff NCOIC to ensure the platoon is led, that all enlisted matters are appropriately handled, and the platoon is sustained administratively. The task to ensure all enlisted matters are appropriately handled is added to include the kneecap to kneecap counseling, coaching, and elevating personal issues that impact the Marine's performance, conduct, mental health, and force preservation issues. Sustaining the platoon administratively means managing leave and liberty, conducting JEPES evaluations, ensuring career counseling requirements are met, ensuring the proper preparation of packages, reviewing all the platoon's FITREPs, and ensuring the timely preparation of awards. It also means ensuring promotion readiness. The Staff NCOIC ensures promotion readiness by ensuring all Marines are prepared for, attend their resident PME, advanced MOS training, and the Rifle Qual PFT and CFT. In order to accomplish this task, I expect the Staff NCOIC to obtain MOL unit leaders' permissions and training as a DTS routing official. For the next paragraph in my billet description, I expect my Staff NCOIC to ensure equipment readiness for the platoon commander's account. This very short billet expectation actually packs in a lot of implication. First, equipment accountability in general. Second, maintenance readiness. While the new platoon commander is still learning how everything works, the Staff NCOIC must be able to hold subordinate chiefs and NCOs accountable for inventorying and maintaining the platoon's equipment. If your unit relies heavily on a lot of specialized tactical equipment, your Staff NCOIC should also attend the following training from the GCSS Marine Corps website or as arranged by your local maintenance management office. These training events are as follows. Getting started with GCSS Marine Corps, named CS 101. The 4-hour GCSS Marine Corps Basic Course, the OBIEE Reports and Users Training named Reports 101, and Maintenance 201 to learn corrective maintenance, preventative maintenance, checks and services, calibrations, configuration management, and the Maintenance Production Report. Your local maintenance management office should also be hosting maintenance training each week. Finally, your Staff NCOIC should be obtaining GCSS Marine Corps access and logging in frequently to keep his or her account active. Finally, the Staff NCOIC is directed to ensure that all the platoon commander's mission-related requirements are met. This includes conducting operational planning. Staff NCOs are usually the best at estimating whether the platoon is manned and equipped to perform the operational tasks within the mission timeline. This is called providing staff estimates. This also includes assigning Marines to go on deployments or exercises, preparing personnel rosters, assigning equipment resources, and coordinating mission-specific training. This task requires the Staff NCOIC to obtain training as a Unit Readiness Planning Coordinator and getting user access for MCTIM's Unit Training Management. It requires getting classified and perhaps Centrix or Coalition network access. While these 3 focus areas describe the work specific to the Staff NCOIC, a 4th focus area allows the rest of the platoon's work to be further delegated and supervised. The Staff NCOIC should be responsible for the correct employment of all the rest of the platoon's billets. Like I said earlier, the platoon Staff NCOIC must be able to manage the A to Z of the work the platoon needs to do, with or without the platoon commander present. That means that he or she should be very intimate with the details of the work the billet holder should be performing. So intimate that it is simple to evaluate whether the billet holder is performing well or needs coaching to get him on target. And that brings us to my second story about Staff NCO leadership. It was my first day in my first platoon commander job. I knew something about how my unit's equipment was supposed to be employed in the MACTAF, and I knew something about upholding standards and being a good role model. But of course, I had no idea what I would be doing when I showed up for work each day. In my new office, laid out in my grungy, worn-out executive-style desk were 10 appointment letters. My Staff NCOIC had placed them there and told me to just sign them. I'll handle them when you're done. As I took a closer look at them, they were each from me with my signature line at the bottom. On the first one, I was apparently appointing a sergeant to be my platoon sergeant. The document had some Marine Corps orders listed as references, and there was a statement, something to the effect of, "You are hereby directed to read and understand the references and assume all duties and responsibilities as the platoon sergeant." Below my signature line was a long horizontal dividing line, and below that was what's called a first endorsement. Basically, a place for the newly appointed platoon sergeant to affirm that they have read and understood the references and accept responsibility as a platoon sergeant. It wasn't a complete set of expectations, but it was good that it delegated the responsibilities. Among the other documents, there was a training NCO, a maintenance NCO, a publications NCO, a safety NCO, and a few others that probably don't make sense 15 years later. But the point is that long before and long after I was the platoon commander there, the Staff NCOIC already made sure that there were NCOs appointed in writing to be the Marine responsible for each part of the platoon's responsibilities. My observation since then is that it's rare to have a strong leadership structure in a platoon which outlasts that single Staff NCOIC who really gets it. When the platoon is led by Staff NCOs that don't get it, life in the platoon can be a frantic mess. The ball is always getting dropped, everything's an emergency, no one knows today what they will be doing tomorrow. Everyone is still working long after COB. Marines are hiding from work. Let me paint a picture that will resonate with a lot of leaders. It's September after a season of retirement ceremonies, personnel turnover, a change of command ceremony, and multiple field exercises. No one spent any time over the last 4 months chipping away at the mountain of maintenance readiness work, and now it's 24-hour ops to get ready for next week's maintenance inspection. Marines that had to travel for formal schools have long overdue charges on their government travel charge cards and have to step away to resolve paycheckage issues. Marines aren't getting promoted because they didn't get to the range or PME on time. Marines are paying $2,000 out of pocket to pay for body armor that was lost or stolen 8 months ago. The platoon commander gets tasked to conduct a command investigation. This is a vicious cycle where each key leader is spending 12 hours a day just to put out today's fires. No one is left over to prevent tomorrow's fires from starting. This platoon is crippled. If only there were some capable junior leaders that could help. There is so much power in delegation of responsibilities to NCOs, but you also need to afford them the guidance, training, and resources to get it done. Pro tip, if you want to develop leaders, actually give them enough space to exercise initiative and empower them with the authority to lead the platoon in that area of responsibility. One more point about these billets. Marines need training. Tasking them to read and understand all relevant references is asking for failure. Maybe 1 in 10 will actually do the reading and probably still won't get to the understanding part. There are competing demands on time. References are long and wordy, packed with irrelevant paragraphs, and take a whole lot of squeeze to get the juice. Instead, with references as a backup, spoon feed them the most important training. Use your grown-up officer and Staff NCO writing skills to write what you expect them to do, and write it at the 12th grade reading level, or less, so they can post it in their workspaces and reference it frequently. If you envision an end state, describe it. Use a story to paint the picture. Use actual pictures. I don't care how you connect with your NCOs, but make them fully prepared to do the work and demonstrate success. This training series is meant to give you leaders enough of a foundation in those billets that you are ready to give at least satisfactory billet descriptions to your NCOs. But more importantly, start to develop in you a conviction about what right really looks like. Okay, like I said earlier, the platoon Staff NCOIC must be able to manage the A to Z of the work the platoon needs to do with or without the platoon commander present. Therefore, the Staff NCOIC should be responsible for the correct employment of all the rest of the platoon's billets. He or she should be the gravitational center of the platoon where all of those billet holders are drawn back to the Staff NCOIC daily or weekly to report progress and receive guidance. Now that that responsibility over these billets has been officially given to the Staff NCOIC, there is now officially a second set of eyes ensuring that the full breadth of the platoon's work is covered, perhaps with significantly more subject matter expertise than the lieutenant alone possesses. In the next episodes, we'll go into detail about the roles, responsibilities, and expectations of each of the platoon's subordinate billets. Before you go, I need you to read this book. It's called First Break All the Rules by Don Clifton. This is my favorite book for building a team and setting a command climate that retains your most talented Marines. This book pairs really well with What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, where we learn the power of soliciting 360-degree feedback to make each of us individually better. First Break All the Rules uses team feedback to maximize work culture. This book will teach you how to calibrate your team so that everyone can get what they need from leadership to be their best selves at work. This book is based on what Gallup's research says is how you know a leader is getting the best out of a team. According to statistical research, the people on the team will be most likely to want to stay with the team if they agree or strongly agree with all 6 of the following statements about their work life. 1. I know what is expected of me at work. 2. I have the equipment and materials I need to do my work right. 3. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. 4. In the last 7 days, I have received praise or recognition for doing good work. 5. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. And 6. There is someone at work who encourages my development. Do you think your subordinates would strongly agree with these statements about your team's work culture? Do you think you would try to stay in an organization where some or all of these statements were not true for you? If you said you disagree with more than a couple of these statements about your work life, think about it. Do you thrive in your work? Do you find it rewarding, independent of how much you get paid? This has big implications for retaining talent. If you want your outstanding Marines to walk away at the end of their current enlistment with all of the skills and training that they've obtained along the way, then by all means, go ahead and ignore these factors. But of course you won't. Instead, you're a smart professional leader. And since you'll go pick up a copy of this book, you'll learn to foster an environment where the Marines agree with all 6 of these statements. Everyone knows what is expected of them. Everyone has all the training and resources needed to get their jobs done right. You and the rest of the leadership team will provide recognition for good work often. You'll care about them as humans. You'll encourage their development. One final factor though, having the opportunity to do what they do best every day, that's the toughest one. Marines get put in jobs all the time that don't match their core talents. Talents ranging from being really good with numbers to being an excellent salesman, where such talents just don't naturally align with the work of, say, a machine gunner, for example. This is your leadership value added. Be interested and curious about them personally. Talk to them. Watch them work. Shine a light on their natural strengths and make adjustments to their roles and responsibilities so they can somehow, some way, use those strengths in their daily work. That's the golden ticket for helping someone find joy in their work, and it's the sole domain of excellent leaders. As we close, remember, be 1% better every day. Read books, develop empathy, be physically tough, work on your talents and make them superpowers. Use 360-degree feedback to identify your weaknesses and work on them relentlessly. And while you're at it, roast me in the comments. Give me feedback and make me better. I'm just here to help speed up the pace at which small unit leaders learn, lead from the front, and thrive. Hopefully with your help, we can make this learning accessible to more new leaders and make our Marine Corps a better place to serve our nation. In summary, during this episode, we discussed the roles and expectations of the platoon's most senior Staff NCO. We went over a good example billet description for the staff non-commissioned officer in charge of the platoon, a billet description that could be easily applied to the majority of platoons in the Marine Corps, at least the ones that provide manned, trained, and equipped forces to military operations. We discussed several roles with respect to manning, which include platoon and personnel administration and leadership. We discussed several roles related to equipping the platoon, including supervising accountability and maintenance readiness of the platoon's equipment. We discussed Staff NCOIC roles in training the platoon, training for professional military education, occupational specialty training, and mission-specific training. Last but not least, we discussed how the Staff NCOIC is the key billet holder which unlocks the power of all the other billets. Through setting expectations, supervising, and coaching of the junior leaders of the platoon, the Staff NCOIC should be the gravitational center of the platoon. Coming up next, what are all the things you should expect out of a platoon sergeant? Are you able to give your platoon sergeant a complete set of expectations so they can run the day-to-day operations of the platoon? Have you set them up to be able to handle many leadership and administrative challenges at the lowest level and prevent them from becoming platoon-level issues? All this and more about delegating the platoon's work to the junior leaders in the upcoming episodes of the Small Unit Leadership Accelerator, so stay tuned. Look for this and more episodes on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, with plans for adding more platforms over time. Since you're serious about being a catalyst for developing the capabilities and culture of your team, I'll expect to see you there.